after claiming the victory at the Second Battle of Philippi, fought on October 23rd of the 42 BC year, the conquerors, Marcus Antonius and Caesar Divi Filius, began sifting through the survivors. Although nearly 14,000 legionaries were pardoned and transferred into the armies of the triumvirs, some of Rome's nobility were not so fortunate. Likely due to the political benefit his father's name could lend to the triumvirs, the son of Marcus Tullius Cicero was formally pardoned, but, according to Suetonius, the son of Caesar was far more ruthless with others. One man, after witnessing the summary executions of many nobles who had fled to the Liberators in Greece as a means of escaping proscription, humbly begged Caesar to allow his body to be returned to his family in Rome for proper burial. The Son of the Divine answered the man, saying, "The crows will soon settle that." With equal cruelty, when deciding which to spare between a father and son who had supported the Liberators, Caesar Divi Filius encouraged the pair to draw straws or to play mora, a Roman version of rock, paper, scissors. When the son lost the gamble, the father stepped up to offer his own life as a substitute for his son's. Following the father's execution, Caesar then witnessed the fruits of his barbarity as the bereaved son chose to join his father in death by committing suicide. Marcus Favonius, the man who had so admired Marcus Porcius Cato that he had imitated the Stoics' behavior, was one of those captured after the battle at Philippi. Favonius was so disgusted by the personal savagery of Caesar Divi Filius that before being dragged off in chains, he selectively saluted only Marcus Antonius for his conquest of Philippi. Without so much as an acknowledgment of the other triumvir, Favonius was led away. Together with the ringleaders Marcus Junius Brutus and Gaius Cassius Longinus, who were the masterminds behind the plot to assassinate Julius Caesar, the battles of Philippi saw the last of the dictator's killers vanquished. Many had already perished. Gaius Trebonius had been beheaded by Publius Cornelius Dolabella in Asia. Decimus Junius Brutus, driven out of Mutina, had died at the hands of a Gallic warlord. Tribune of the plebs, Pontius Aquila, fell defending Mutina, and Servius Sulpicius Galba was condemned to death through the passing of the Lex Pedia. But it was Philippi that offered up to Caesar Divi Filius the vestige of his father's killers. Lucius Tillius Cimber, whose plea for his exiled brother had triggered the death of Julius Caesar, gave up his life for the fight in the Second Battle of Philippi. Joining him was Publius Servilius Casca, the childhood friend of the dictator, who had been the first to draw blood on that now infamous Ides of March. And among the many who took their own lives following the defeat at Philippi was Pacuvius Labio, the man responsible for recruiting many of Caesar's assassins. With Labio's death, the conclusion of Caesar Divi Filius's vengeance against his father's killers was complete. Now it was time to repay and restore. Thousands upon thousands of veteran soldiers needed to be compensated and settled on lands. Rome's eastern provinces, devastated by the ruthless policies of Brutus and Cassius, also needed to be rebuilt. Beyond that, political events in Rome, short on detail in the annals of history, drew the suspicion of the victorious Caesarian generals who now controlled the vast majority of Rome's legions. Armed with one legion, Marcus Aemilius Lepidus, the third triumvir, also the Pontifex Maximus, had remained in Rome to oversee the government while Antonius and Caesar had marched their forces to Greece. Lepidus was married to Junia Secunda, the sister of the late Brutus and sister-in-law of the late Cassius. As consul for the 42 BC year, Lepidus oversaw the consular elections for the 41 BC year. In the 41 BC consular election, Lucius Antonius, the youngest brother of Marcus Antonius, was elected consul alongside Publius Servilius Vatia Isauricus, the husband of Junia Prima, the sister of Lepidus's wife. We do not know the specifics of what may have aroused the suspicions of Antonius and Caesar toward their third triumvir, but Lepidus's relationship to Brutus and Cassius would have given him the perfect political pedigree to become the rallying figure in uniting the scattered republicans. And so, with Rome's eastern provinces now at their disposal, and the brother of Antonius now acting as consul and able to preside over Antonius's interests in Rome, Marcus Antonius and his fellow triumvir, Caesar Divi Filius, re-evaluated the division of territories initially agreed upon. Marcus Antonius, a self-proclaimed Philhellene, or lover of all things Greek, claimed as his territory the whole of the East, formerly under the control of the Liberators. Antonius undertook a reorganization of Rome's eastern provinces, but still retained the province of Gaul, which he had coveted since the formation of the Second Triumvirate. Cisalpine Gaul, however, was separated out from Greater Gaul and formally incorporated as a part of Italy, to be designated as common ground and not the sole domain of any one of the triumvirs. Caesar Divi kept his original territories of Sicily, Corsica and Sardinia, with their abundant grain resources, but also secured Hispania for himself with all her silver mines, stripping them from Marcus Aemilius Lepidus and leaving the Pontifex Maximus only the province of Africa. Splitting the command of their joint army, Antonius and Caesar parted ways. Caesar returned to Rome to begin the monumental task of settling his legions and finally paying them for their service. This despite the state treasury being completely depleted by years of civil war and a famine driven by the overtaxation of farmers, giving rise to escalating grain prices. Against this backdrop, Marcus Antonius marched his half of the army to Athens, where he remained for the 42-41 BC winter. In Athens, Antonius quickly earned the love and respect of the Athenians by immersing himself in Greek culture, attending festivals and religious ceremonies. He went so far as to be indoctrinated into a secret cult which worshipped the goddesses Demeter and Persephone, the mother-daughter deities whose relationship with Hades of the underworld was thought to explain the changing seasons. In early 41 BC, Marcus Antonius departed Athens, crossed the Aegean Sea, and toured Anatolia, where he negotiated and settled the many disputes which had arisen among Rome's eastern vassal kingdoms as the result of Cassius's rule. But Antonius imposed heavy fines and taxation against the Hellenic kingdoms who had willingly supported the Liberators, while exempting those kingdoms which had maintained their support of the Caesarians. For Rhodes, Lycia, and Tarsus, whose resistance to the Liberators had been punished by Cassius selling their citizenry into slavery, Antonius provided financial reparations, decreeing that all those delivered into bondage by the Liberators be freed at once, their liberties fully restored. When he arrived in Ephesus, with his popularity throughout the East quickly spreading, Marcus Antonius was hailed by the Ephesians as the god Dionysus, born in the flesh. In Ephesus, the most powerful of the three triumvirs continued to consolidate Rome's authority over the eastern Mediterranean, as envoys travelled from their kingdoms to pay him homage and solidify their own positions. Dionysus, the king of Galatia, journeyed to Ephesus to beg Antonius's forgiveness for having supported the Liberators. Dionysus had been appointed king of Galatia by Julius Caesar after fighting alongside the dictator against Pharnaces at the Battle of Zela in 47 BC. In the aftermath of the dictator's murder, King Dionysus was among the eastern kings Antonius had confirmed as part of the bevy of laws he had forced through the Senate in 44 BC, insisting these laws represented Caesar's wishes. However, when Brutus and Cassius had begun raising the East, King Dionysus had been keenly aware of the absence of his allies and felt forced to side with the Liberators. But in response to his ardent supplication, Marcus Antonius forgave King Dionysus, and he was confirmed in his position by the current triumvir. Antonius also confirmed Ariarathes X as king of Cappadocia. Cassius had executed his brother, King Ariobarzanes III, for resisting Liberator rule in his kingdom. From Judea, Faisal and Herod, the sons of Antipater, also arrived to petition Antonius. Their father had been poisoned by Manicus, the same man Antipater had saved by paying the 100 talents of silver that Cassius had demanded, but that Manicus was unable to raise. Because Cassius had granted Faisal and Herod vengeance by allowing the execution of Manicus for the poisoning of their father, and so that they might protect their cities from further devastation by the forces of Cassius, Judea had joined the Liberator cause. But their father, having been placed in power by Pompeius Magnus in 63 BC, had ruled Judea in accordance with Roman interests and had taught his sons to govern the same. Herod and Faisal came to Ephesus fully prepared to pay, as the cost of their forgiveness, enormous bribes, bribes which Antonius all too happily accepted before confirming them in their current positions over Jerusalem and Galilee. Yet, with so many vassal kingdoms traveling to Ephesus to pay court to Marcus Antonius, one very important and extremely powerful Eastern monarch was missing. Cleopatra VII of Egypt had sent 4 legions to assist Publius Cornelius Dolabella when he had been besieged in Laodicea, yet somehow they had fallen into the hands of Cassius, who made them his own. She had later dispatched a fleet to Greece, which was forced to turn back to Alexandria after encountering a storm in the Mediterranean. Yet it seemed curious that Cassius's fleet of ships, under the commands of Mercus and Gnaeus Domitius Aenobarbus, had arrived in Greece without incident. As grounds for suspicion that she had assisted the Liberators, Cleopatra's failure to present herself to Antonius in Ephesus did not go unnoticed by the triumvir. In response, Antonius dispatched one of his advisers, Quintus Dellius, to visit the queen. Before her royal court in Alexandria, the triumvir's envoy demanded that Cleopatra present herself to Marcus Antonius, and answer the charges now levied against her.